Never before had a cricket format already been denounced and criticised before a ball was even bowled, and yet the 100 managed it. Before the teams were named, before the rules were fully understood, before anyone knew whether this would actually work, people were emotional, people were angry, and people did not like it. Now, I already know that this video is going to be somewhat controversial among the cricketing fandom, and I just ask you one thing before you go down to the comment section and tear me a new one. Just please at least watch some of the video, see if you agree with a few of my points. This isn't a love letter to the 100 by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a reframing or a different opinion on maybe how you should view the tournament, or could view the tournament. Without further ado, back to the case in point, the 100. Traditional fans see it as gimmicky, unnecessary, even disrespectful to a sport that's built on history, nuance, and patience. And honestly, that reaction was almost to be expected. New, shorter formats of the game have established themselves over the past few decades, each one promising to generate new audiences and untold revenue for a sport which is relatively insular. All the while, the cricketing fan of yesteryear has accused these formats of killing the very nature of the game. So when the 100 arrived with its brightly coloured kits, questionable sponsors, not even a mention of overs in the rules, and half-time Super Bowl but on a budget pop music performances, people were skeptical. It felt like another step away from what made cricket cricket. The detractors were vocal in their hundreds, and they remain extraordinarily vocal to this day. You only need to scan the comments on literally any BBC Sport article about cricket, not even about the 100, and you will see comments from people basically saying it's a worthless waste of time. Trust me, click on an article and the angry mob will be there, filled with untethered rage which knows no bounds. But most of that reaction isn't really about the fact that the game is 200 balls at most. That reaction comes from fear. Fear that traditional values of cricket, and crucially in the UK, the county game, is being pushed aside. These fears aren't irrational. At this point, they're relatively well founded. The modern English cricket fan arguably doesn't care about county cricket at all. Now, I can't speak for similar competitions around the globe because, for one, I'm not local to those competitions and it's harder to keep up with them, but secondly, I'm not incentivized to keep up with them. I kind of don't really want to keep up with them. And I love this sport, but for me, there's enough international and, sorry, but franchise cricket around to keep me satiated throughout the year. But please put down your torches and pitchforks for 1 second, because I'm clearly not the only person with this opinion. Going back to the point in hand, let's look at the Ranji Trophy in India. Now, on a good day, the attendance for these games averages at around 1,500 people. Let's compare that to the IPL, which averages around 50,000 attendees. In Australia, the Sheffield Shield brings in, say that 10 times fast, brings in a fairly respectable 2,000 average spectators per game. But this is only 10% of the Big Bash average crowd, which is 20,000. All of this is to illustrate a pretty clear point, which is that T20 and franchise cricket has become the lifeblood of the sport. The attendance and revenue created by the shortest, most accessible, and on a surface level, the most entertaining format of the sport is undeniable. Now, to caveat this video, I am a test match enjoyer, trust me. I love nothing more than waking up on day 5 of a test match where everything hangs in the balance, it could go either way. The tension is unbearable in only the way that test cricket can provide. But here's the kicker, I got here through T20. In my younger days, I would exclusively watch the shortest format of the game. I would maybe push to an ODI if I really wanted some cricketing action in my life, but up until fairly recent, I mean not so much anymore, I'm getting old, but until fairly recently, test matches were a complete no-go for me. When this beautiful game that I love first started sinking its teeth into me, it was because of, honestly, the IPL. And as the years passed, I learned to understand the nuance of the sport and I started watching the longer formats, and now, look at me, I'm running at this point, hopefully not in the future, but you know, a very modest YouTube channel where I'm literally talking about it. I now firmly, fully believe and agree that test matches are the pinnacle of the sport. But how did I get here? It's because of T20. In the way that I feel like the World Cup is the pinnacle of football, I still enjoy the Premier League, I still enjoy the FA Cup, I like a bit of Bundesliga now and then. But to bring us back to cricket, I also kind of like the 100. Let's pose a slightly different question to the one that you would usually hear. Let's not focus on, is the 100 good, or do you like the 100? Let's instead ask, why does cricket need this format at all? And I know what you're thinking, it doesn't, but hear me out. The 100 didn't just materialise because of a pretty dull Wednesday morning meeting at the ECB. It materialised because something else was already going wrong. And once you understand that, whether you like the 100 or not, the conversation changes completely. For younger audiences, cricket is slow, inaccessible, and to a certain extent, invisible. Matches are locked behind paywalls, schedules are confusing, and the sport demands a level of knowledge going into the game that if you don't already have through friends, family, or whatever, you just won't understand what's going on. If you didn't already understand cricket through different means, there's very little inviting you in, and that's before we get into the incredibly bad relationship that the sport has with international or just broadcasters, at least in the UK. This is going to be a bit UK-centric for a moment, sorry, but not only is the sport barely discussed on the news, the county championship is not available on any TV channel in the UK. Even in international tournaments, like a few weeks ago when England were in the semi-final of a World Cup against India, it was on Sky Sports, which is a paid-for premium service. And here's the craziest thing about it, it wasn't even on the home page of Now TV, which hosts Sky Sports, when you logged into it. You can't say this for the 100. It gets prime time BBC evening and afternoon slots, which are not even reserved in footballing spaces. You know, we'll occasionally get an FA Cup game, and sure, international tournament games are shown on BBC, but for cricket, this is a major deal. I mentioned a moment ago about the schedule being a massive barrier to entry for cricket, and I do want to take time to go back to this after being sidetracked ranting about the abysmal scheduling on TV. I want to talk about the actual schedule of the cricketing calendar. The rule of thumb that you're taught here in the UK is that cricket is a summertime sport. Football is a winter sport, cricket's played in the summer. Now, this isn't wrong, but the problem is that summer is relatable to where you are in the world, so summertime here is winter in Australia and vice versa. So when you have an Ashes series down under, like the one we just had, it's in the winter in the UK, which is confusing for a child or a young kid who wants to get into cricket, and you tell them, oh, it's a summer sport, and they're like, okay, then why is it being played on Boxing Day? It's also right in the middle of the football season, which is great when you're trying to compete for shelf space as a sport. The biggest franchise tournament of the year, which is undeniably the IPL, that happens now. It's springtime in the UK, so it's approaching summer, but by the time the summer months actually begin, the IPL will have finished. Again, that goes against this rule of thumb that we're taught that cricket is a summer sport. If one of the biggest tournaments is done before summer even kicks off, for a young kid who's trying to understand how the sport works, it's very confusing. Back to the UK for a second, and sure, the county game takes place over a number of months, the majority of which are the summer months. But we have two problems here, and they are the Blast and the 100. Because of some pretty weird scheduling from the ECB, both of these tournaments take place during the county championship season. You can kind of forgive the Blast because it's pretty much an offshoot of the county championship. It's, the same players, kind of the same teams. But when the 100 does it, it's kind of even more egregious because the 100 is unrelated to the county championship and the Blast, but it uses the exact same players plus a few international players per team. And again, it disrupts the flow of the English cricketing summer. As I say, it's just weird planning from the ECB, and it makes following along the county championship actually quite difficult. However, a positive note for the 100 is that it does take place in the space of 1 month, and it's slap bang in the middle of British summertime, when you should expect the cricket to be on. Combine that with the fact that, as I said earlier, it's on the main TV channel in the UK that everyone with a television pretty much has access to. You can see why I feel like the 100 is a great entry point for young kids who want to get into the sport. The 100 wasn't just created for fun, it was created again for a reason, and that reason was fear, and it was also worry. The cricketing powers that be were worried about who was watching, but more importantly, who wasn't watching. By the late 2010s, English cricket was facing a problem which it had spent the last couple of decades kind of hoping would just disappear, and that was the fact that the game was not only stagnating, it was kind of declining. Low crowd levels coupled with pretty much a complete lack of national interest in the sport since the Ashes series in the mid-2000s meant that names that should be household names like Joe Root or even the great Virat Kohli of India, these sports people are incredible and within the world of cricket are obviously massively famous and successful, but step outside that world for a moment, walk down any old high street in the UK, and I can almost guarantee you that 9 out of 10 people just won't know who Joe Root is, which to us is crazy, but it's the reality. And that's the uncomfortable truth that sits at the heart of the 100. It's there because cricket has failed to grow. And that's not because tradition or the existing formats of the sport are broken, far from it. It's just that they aren't enough anymore. The 100 hasn't been designed as a replacement, it's been designed as a response to a problem that the sport can no longer ignore. Returning to the earlier question once again, why did the ECB create the 100? In a kind of very 2026 way, I'm going to attempt to surmise all the points right now, and that is because we are living in the age of TikTok and incredibly short attention span. Simplicity is not an insult, it's an invitation. One of the biggest misunderstandings about the 100 is the idea that making cricket easier to follow somehow makes it lesser. And while yes, in the eyes of many of us, the 100 is the least interesting format of the game, in reality, it's not for those of us that have this opinion. Every sport that grows well globally does one thing, and that's that it lowers the barrier to entry. 100 balls. It's immediately understandable. There's no overcounting, no mental arithmetic, no need to keep track of several things at once, no need to explain everything constantly. You know, at most it's only going to take a couple of hours. You're going to see hopefully some big shots, you know, some action, so to speak. And you don't need a glossary to follow along. An analogy I'd like to use here is baseball, and before another angry mob comes out in the comment section against an admittedly far inferior bat and ball game, baseball does scratch the same itch that the 100 does. Pretty much the only method of scoring in baseball is by hitting it out of the ground, so you see it happen fairly often in a game. On the flip side, baseball illustrates another point about the 100 that I was just making, which is the simplicity. Baseball is confusing. There's numbers everywhere. It's really hard to understand what's going on at any given time. And that is exactly the same way that the majority of first-time cricket viewers feel. The 100 has just a few numbers really to worry about. How many balls are left? What's the score? That's kind of it. Sure, wickets do come into it as well, but for the most part, people are just interested in how many sixes have been hit and what's the total at the moment, what's the other team going to have to chase. That clarity matters as well for a live viewing. The 100 was built to be watched in real time. Like I say, it's on a primetime slot on the BBC. It respects this unfortunate modern era of shrinking attention spans that we live in without demanding too much commitment from the opening ball. You can tune into a 100 game when it's halfway through and still quite quickly pick up the gist of what's happened. Crucially, the 100 doesn't remove the complexity and the nuance of what makes cricket such a brilliant sport. It just kind of delays it. The tactics, the matchups, the thinking, the process, it's all still there if you scratch beneath the surface. And once the game has sunk its teeth into you in the way that it did for me all those years ago, you probably will want to scratch beneath the surface. Once that young kid watching in the crowd at the Oval or Edgbaston or wherever he may be, once he realises that, hey, this game is actually kind of fun, how long is it before he wants more? Suddenly there's T20s to watch, there's ODIs to watch, and hopefully you'd like to think that eventually the young cricketing fan of tomorrow will end up watching test matches. The 100 isn't replacing anything that the commenters seem to think it is. It's just acting as a feeder for the next generation. Most fans, and again I'll use myself as a perfect example, most fans don't start with test matches, you grow into it. Every generation enters the game differently. For some, it was Sunday League cricket. For others, it was ODIs, and for many, it was T20s. The 100 simply becomes another point of entry. It's not the destination, it's where you start. And once you've got the basics hooked into you, curiosity will do the rest. County cricket still exists. Test match cricket still exists. International cricket still exists and isn't going anywhere. There's no evidence at all to suggest that the traditional and existing formats of the game have declined since the 100 started. Attendance and interest in the sport was already sadly on the decline. Blaming the new shiny thing for something that predates it misses the point entirely. Now, if the 100 does nothing else, it would justify its existence solely for what it's done for women's cricket. For the first time in English domestic cricket, the women's game isn't an afterthought. It's right there alongside the men's game. It's not squeezed into the margins anymore. Sometimes it happens before the men's game, sometimes it happens afterwards. Either way, these women's games are now being given equal billing in the same stadiums with the same crowds. Primetime slots on the BBC, not filler scheduling, and that alone has presented a very long overdue cultural shift. The visibility matters. It's not symbolic, it's structural. When people see the game, they invest in it. Broadcasters commit, sponsors follow, and funding increases. Pathways improve. The whole pipeline gets better if you give something more visibility. You can't grow a sport by hiding it, and the 100 didn't just showcase elite women's cricket. It made it feel normal. It made it feel like part of the package, as it should. And that, more than any slogan or marketing campaign, does more long-term good and how lasting change will actually take place. Another issue I would briefly like to touch on, which is far bigger than the game itself, is that recently, well, I say recently, it was a few weeks ago now, but before the 100 auction, the IPL owned 100 teams, if that makes sense at all. They tried to put through a motion where in this new auction format, no Pakistani players were allowed to register. Now, to bring those restrictions to the English game and on English soil is, in a word, injustice. I'm not going to wade into the political tensions that surround India and Pakistan because, quite frankly, I don't know enough. However, here, cricket is for everyone, as it should be, as it always should be. So I'm glad and very relieved to see that the motion originally suggested by the IPL-backed teams was removed, and we do indeed have Pakistani players on the roster for the 2026 edition of the 100. At its best, cricket is a vision of what the world should be. It's free of racism, it's free of judgment, it's free of misogyny. It's where we respect our neighbours' right to believe and live and play in their own way. Anyway, none of this means that the 100 is perfect, far from it. Some of the criticism is completely fair. The impact on the counties is real, the branding can be quite confusing, the schedule has created tension, and the finance balance is, if anything, getting even worse. Also, I made reference to this earlier, but seriously, those halftime shows, they do absolutely nothing for the game. I don't mean to be disrespectful to the performers, but people aren't there to watch a half-assed pop concert, they're there to watch a sport. And for the people in the stadium, when those halftime, trust me, I've been to many 100 games, I've seen this firsthand. When that halftime show kicks off, most people go to the bar, they go to the toilet, they go and get something to eat. They're not staying to watch some pop artist they've never heard of. For the people at home, I'm not sure what they do. I mean, I probably just get my phone out and have a browse of Twitter or something. I'm not sure what you guys do when you're watching the 100, but here's what they should do. Play some kind of VT or educational thing where it's like, okay, you're probably new to cricket, you might be new to the 100. Let's teach you a little bit about how the game works. Fielding positions or I don't know, different types of bowling deliveries, different ways that batters can play shots. Something to get people even more invested in the game rather than a, like I said earlier, Super Bowl but incredibly budget halftime pop concert that no one asked for. Anyway, flawed as the 100 is, it doesn't mean it's harmful. Every major change in cricket has arrived rough around the edges and needing time to settle in. The mistake would be if the 100 was abandoned, which of course it seems like right now that's almost definitely not going to happen. There's been a lot of investment over the past 12 months, but abandoning it would definitely be the wrong thing to do. Improve it. The question shouldn't be, oh, should this format even exist, or what's the point of this format? It should be, how can we integrate this into the wider game to ensure that cricket has a long, sustainable future ahead of it? Cricket has survived for as long as it has because it evolves. The most dangerous thing a sport can do is stand still while the world around it moves on. And if the 100 helps even one new generation of fans find their way into cricket, then it's already been worth its weight in gold. Now, I would love to know what you guys think. If you did make it to the end of the video, first of all, thanks very much. I do very much hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you again for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Not just your opinions on what I've discussed today and about the 100 in general, but you know, is the setup okay? Is the mic decent? I do want to get a better camera. Anyway, this is all just rambling nonsense. I'm a relatively new channel. I'm new to this, but I'm enjoying myself even if the views aren't flooding in just yet. But please, if you are enjoying the videos, please like and subscribe, share them with your cricketing buddies. With all that being said, have a great rest of the week, wherever you are in the world. Thank you again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon.